masters of speed. This is Formula One.
Welcome to Azerbaijan then, Baku. And yeah, Baku is pretty much a circuit like Monza. Just with a few more turns. This is where it is. So this is what I've gone with, and it seems to work well for me. But again, we'll go into it and yeah, see how you get on. So for the front wing, I've gone with 30. On the rear wing, I've gone with 20. It might be a little bit much on the rear wing, but for this, obviously for me, it works. But if you feel that you're bleeding too much speed down the back straight, take this down. I wouldn't recommend going any lower than 16. But then obviously you were going to get to a point where the rear end is going to be extremely loose. So for the sake of this, I've gone with 30-20, and it really works very well. But again, you could bring this down to 28-20. It's entirely up to you. You create the setup to suit your driving, but for the sake of this setup, 30-20 suits me very well. I did find whilst testing that if you were too hot through the castle section, the rear end did tend to try and get away. Hence the reason why I've gone with 30-20, but that's a skill issue for me. So, you know, see how it affects you guys. On the transmission then, I've gone with a 70% on diff, I've gone with a 30% off diff, and then I've gone with 100 braking, engine braking. But, you know, if the on diff is too much, turn it down, take it down to 60-30, or even take it up to 60-40. It's entirely up to you. But again, for the sake of this setup, this is what I've gone with. Suspension geometry, yeah, there's much point really of even having this in the game. Keep saying, absolutely bored of this by now. It's one thing I really hope they'd fix, but they didn't. So, suspension then. It's pretty much standard suspension. I've gone with a 41 front suspension. I've gone with a 5 on the rear. If you need a bit more in the rear, take this up by all means. Take it up to, I wouldn't recommend going any higher than 10. But like I said, for this setup, I've gone with a 41.5 on the suspension. Obviously, stiff rear anti-roll bar, and again, if you need more stiffness in the rear of the car, take this up, take it all the way up. It's entirely up to you guys, but for the sake of this setup, I've gone with 21 on the front roll bar, 16 on the rear. And yet again, like many other setups, I've gone with a ride height on the front of 21. It's quite low. There aren't very many curbs to get on. Maybe there's a sausage curb at the end of sector 2. Just go careful on that one, because if you run too wide, you will ride it, and it's pretty much like the curb at Jeddah. You'll continue straight on, bottom out, and lose lap time, and you want to maximize as much lap time as you can, obviously, for the main straight. And again, if you feel that you're bleeding too much speed down the main straight, by all means take this down. Wouldn't recommend going any lower than 56, because you have to keep some ride height in the car, especially for the uphill part into the castle section. But there aren't very many curbs to ride or anything, and the curb at just before the castle section is quite low anyway, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, this is what I've gone with for the suspension, roll bar, and ride height. Obviously, don't be afraid to change it. I'm just a guide, and like I said, if you feel that you need to change the setup more, change it. And if it doesn't work, guess what? Just restart. That's the beauty of having a setup. As long as you don't overwrite the baseline setup, by all means, you carry on. It's a setup for you guys. On the brakes then. Now, this is the one where I've gone a little bit lower on the brake pressure, simply because I found I was locking up into turn 1. It's a heavy braking zone. Turn 2 is quite heavy, and then turn 3, obviously it's the braking zones after the long straights. I feel that they're quite heavy. Towards the end of sector 2 as well, just before the wall, and then the downhill left, that's quite a heavy braking zone. And then at the end of sector 2, that's quite a heavy braking zone. It's quite a lot of heavy braking zones, just simply because of the speed of the Baku circuit, and I found I was locking up quite a considerable amount. So I took the brake pressure down to 98%. But again, if you guys want to run 100, you carry on. You are probably more have got a deft touch on the brakes compared to me. I'm quite heavy-handed, so yeah. And then I've gone with a front brake bias of 57%, simply because, just like I said, with the brake pressure, I found I was locking up quite a considerable amount, and Baku is a very rear tyre circuit, obviously a lot of wheel spin. It's pretty much a low grip circuit like Canada, not as bad, but still very much a low grip circuit, so you need to be mindful of the rear tyres as well. Yeah, you just obviously chop and change it. And again, I'm only speaking to ABS off users. I run 0 assists, so yeah, this would be perfect for me. But if you run ABS, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, don't worry about this part of the setup. On the tires then, and pretty much highest tire pressures. Maybe like the suspension geometry, Codemasters will fix it. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, right? But anyway, that's the Baku setup, Azerbaijan. Hope it helps. Let me know in the comments. Obviously feeling all the love from the new subscribers and everything. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I hope the setup helps, guys. Do that good stuff. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you for the next one. You take care.